Very good morning to you. I'm like good actually, that's a bit bright, that light. I wrote a book called No Straight Lines, Making Sense of Our Nonlinear World, which is sort of the basis of which I'm going to sort of share some thoughts with you today. It was a 7-year journey, so I've got to kind of take that and kind of condense that down into a short period of time. So I apologize in advance if it's a very big topic, so we can only really just kind of look at the surface of it. But I definitely have seen a world in a process of transformation, and I suppose in many ways my concern is how we best prepare ourselves and engage with how we manage that change. And I think that, you know, we really have to kind of think very hard and very deeply about what that means to all of us in this room. Tell you a story to begin with. Once upon a time, there was a company called Lego. You all know what Lego is. I'm sure there are still some Lego fans secretly or even publicly in this room. And of course, Lego was a very successful company, and they worked in what I call a very linear fashion. And they had one revenue model, and people sat down and kind of used to think about the types of toys that children would want to play with 12 months down the line, so spend quite a lot of money working on that. They would maybe test it. They would then have to invest in the production of those things. Then they would have to kind of distribute that, and then they'd have to spend lots of money on marketing in the hope at the end of the day enough people would come in the door to buy the product. And of course, you know, what happened is that Lego got massively disrupted by the gaming industry. And this one revenue model was not enough to enable them to adjust to this change. So in fact, actually, they now have about 12 revenue models. And this is one I was going to share with you. It's called Lego QSO. And the way it works is anyone in this room, if you're really into Lego, you can design your Lego product. You upload it to this platform called QSO. You then get people to come and vote for this product. If you get 10,000 fans that say, we would really like to buy this product, Lego will make it, it will get your name on the product, and you'll get 1% of the revenue share, right? That's a very different type of way of operating. It's a different type of language, and it's a different way of thinking. And I talk about this interrelationship between commerce, culture, community, and connectivity. Because though Ben touches on the point that, you know, China has, you know, a lot of money in terms of what it's investing in its public media, all of you are challenged in many ways in terms of where and how your revenue comes from. So thinking about those things is extremely important to address. So it's not potentially business as usual. And just to be clear about this, you know, Lego is relevant because I think they had the wisdom to recognize that the old model of commerce was broken. That they had the courage to explore new and emergent means of how they could create a different type of sustaining business model. And that's part of the reason why Freedom Lab and Jürgen and the guys are here with you today to help you maybe go on that journey. They had the capacity to deeply listen. Now, in my work that I've done with a lot of corporations in my time, I can tell you that when you meet a junior person inside their organization that treats you with a great deal of arrogance, and in English the word is hubris, I can tell you there's a gravitational pull from that, and it comes down like this. And it means that those people aren't listening to what you're saying to them because they're arrogant. And Lego weren't arrogant. They sat down and they opened and they deeply listened to what was being said, even if they found it deeply challenging to the way that that organization had been operating and functioning. And that they understood actually that what I described to you as a linear pattern from start to end, by using the QSO platform, allows them to change the way they think about their engagement with their customers and their revenue and how they deal with time. I'm not saying it's the only way, but it's a fundamentally different way of operating. How far can you push yourselves to think about how you could create, and I agree again with Ben, which is quality, which is what it's all about, not quantity, can really give you what you need to play an important role in our world going forwards. So in those straight lines, there are 6 navigational guides, which the guys asked me to sort of talk to you briefly about. And it's a kind of framing philosophy and an approach of how we could perhaps address the challenges of the future and of now, actually, in perhaps a better way. The first principle is ambiguity. I use the word ambiguity, which obviously is related to complexity, a complex world, but ambiguity in English means actually it's unclear, it's more foggy. And the reality is that, you know, we do get very fearful with things we don't understand. The amount of conversations that go on around stuff to do with what we call the digital world, and people dismissing things, means that actually it will always stay unclear to us. And so we need to actually have a kind of more diagnostic approach to the forces that are disrupting you in a variety of different ways and see that, in fact, that they are interconnected. Now, so why are cows relevant to you people in this room? Well, the guy that actually runs this company, Yeo Valley, it sells 8 out of 10 organic yogurts in the UK. It's the largest organic dairy farm in the UK. Okay? It's a sizable business. But 25 years ago, he was going out of business because he was running his farm on an oil-based economy. And the supermarkets would say, Tim, I only want 50% of your milk this week. And he said, well, I can't turn the cows off 50%. And with the volatility of oil prices, you know, he could be putting up major kind of cash flow problems in a very short period of time. So he was an accountant, right? So he's a numbers guy, and he sat down and thought about diagnostically the challenges that were really impacting his business. And he looked way ahead and he said, if I turn this farm into an organic farm, I can actually neutralize as best I can some of the forces of disruption that are happening to me, right? Now, of course, we talk about organic all the time now, but 25 years ago when Tim made this decision, that was absolutely a heresy. So sometimes thinking the unthinkable is the point, and to explore that and understand it, when everyone else around you is saying, no, 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 you've got to really look and deeply into all of those things systemically that are impacting on your world. Because if we don't understand that world that we're in properly, and we can have a proper, fulsome discussion about it, it will always challenge us, right? So Nokia said, 40% handshare market, we will never make a touchscreen phone. Okay? Who could possibly touch us? We've got 40% market share. And actually, Steve Jobs made a trip to Nokia, and he said, before this phone, but he said, we've got this thing called iTunes. Would you like to play with us? And they went, Steve, there's the door. All right? Challenge of a complex world. Hubris and arrogance. Deep listening. And so, do you really understand how YouTube could be working for and with your businesses or your organizations? Do you see them as a threat? Do you understand that Google says, well, you know, TV is going to become part of the search and the internet is going to move into your world? Have you really understood that? Are you comfortable with it? Or does that still worry you? And so you have to place fear of the unknown with curiosity. You know, I've flown nearly all my working life, 25 years, okay, and actually I'm flying to Australia this afternoon. Do you know, I worry about it. I worry all the time. But I know that I actually just have to deal with that fear on a daily basis and get on with it, all right? The second one is adaptiveness. There is a company called Local Motors. They're a car manufacturing company. But I'm going to read some of this language out to you. Microfactory, lightweight, lean, open source, open APIs, online, offline, the company as a community, participatory tools, participatory media, code creation, competition. This is not the language of a normal car company. And I talk about it as a pattern language. And this company can build cars 5 times faster at 100 times less the capital cost. They have an incredible collaboration platform where they're collaborating with people around the world to design and think about automotive innovation and design. But it was only because they had the capacity to talk about those different types of words and to start to think about a different type of design of the organization, a different type of business model for the organization, which are fundamentally different to the way a car company would normally operate. You know, Fitbit and Nike Fuel, you know, where we're using data and putting these things onto our bodies to kind of get us to think differently about healthcare. Well, what if Nike was to run, you know, preventative health services? I think that's really a realistic possibility. So, you know, we have a different type of languages of what I call a nonlinear world, nonlinear thinking. That time is also non-linear. I'm not saying that a point of view isn't relevant today, but I think it's very different. And just as a small example, there's a friend of mine, he runs the UK's third largest TV production company. They do a lot of work with Renault and Renault TV, but actually they had very low viewing figures on Channel 5. And what they did was they put their entire Renault TV program on YouTube. And they had quarter-on-quarter increase of 250% of the people that was engaging with that content. Now, I'm not saying that that is something you should all be doing, but is that something that you could really embrace and think about in terms of a different way of how your content, your quality content, could be used and distributed that could create greater value? So it was Wittgenstein, is the only philosopher I'll quote in my talk, but he said the limits of our language are the limits of our world. And if we can't describe a new destination, like Local Motors, for example, or Yeo Valley, then we're never going to be able to get there. If we keep describing the problems with the same language, we'll arrive at the same answers that won't get us to the transformative ideas and possibilities that are going to make public service broadcasts thrive in the next 10 to 20 years. The third one is openness. I say openness is resilience. Nature's default setting is open. And it's not, again, sort of open or closed, but this idea of open innovation, which is how Local Motors works. Open legal frameworks that Gerd was talking about that kind of destroyed the music industry because they wanted to lock everything down and control it. The idea of open APIs, allowing information to sort of be plugged into other things so services can be created, etc., etc. This is a different type of language that helps us to think very differently about what we might create. MIT, we all know what MIT is, right? They publish their entire curriculum online under an open commons or a Creative Commons license. And people said to them, "You are insane. You're giving all of your coursework away for free. No one's going to turn up." And of course, the opposite happened. They were oversubscribed. I call it the economics of sharing. It's what Gerd talked about, which is about trust and being trusted. So mutuality, which is what openness is in many ways, is a business strategy. How do we actually better engage with each other to share? The fourth one is participatory cultures and tools. So I don't like talking about social media, and I've been looking at what makes human beings interact and engage with each other for a very long period of time. And social media is very limiting in understanding the potential, like Local Motors, like the Lego QSO thing. Because human motivation is deeply complex, but we have arrived at a world where we seem to kind of want to have a KPI which is numerical, which has got a financial number that's hanging off it. And that is actually not how we walked into this room, why we walked into this room, or how we engage and share with each other. So ProPublica, for example, and just give you a sort of a concrete example, in the US is an investigative news journalism site, and they are collaborating in a whole variety of different ways to try and bring quality journalism, investigative journalism, to the world at large. And so that could be a way of saying, well, how do we get that quality? The quality that we really need, maybe we need greater participation and mutualism and a way of cooperating where we can really deliver that. And again, I agree with Ben's point, which is actually you are the flagmast of nations. I agree that actually without the BBC, you know, we would be a very different type of country. So how can we do that? How can we do it even better? So for me, participatory cultures aren't things which are quaint and folksy and just to do with a few people hanging out on Facebook. They are a very powerful, potent means by which your organizations could work better and how you engage and interact with the world. It's a deep dive, it's a long journey, but if you really understand it, you can start to use that as a sort of a means of how your organizations can thrive in the future. The fifth one is craftsmanship. And the reason why I talk about craftsmanship, because, again, back to Ben's point, it's about quality. But there are a number of things about craftsmanship which are very important to me. The craftsman or craftswoman works with their hand, their heart, and their mind. And they are always in beta, i.e., they say, I am not complete. It is a constant process of how I upgrade myself and my competencies and my capabilities. And actually, the craftsman represents creativity, because he or she is bringing two things together and saying, well, if I put those two things together, what does that look like? Got to be curious, try it out. And of course, things fail. You know, a master craftsman is only a master craftsman because they've constantly worked and tried stuff out. So you've got to build in, as Gerd said, 10% of your time in thinking about transformation. I talk about it from a crafty perspective, whereas actually we quite often live in cultures where what we see as failure, because the organization is designed to run at 100% efficiency every day, there is no space for you to work like craftsmen and craftswomen in your organization, trying stuff out and see what happens. Because actually, you have to be the creators of the future and not consumers of it. And you can only do that with this approach, is my belief. The last one is epic. The gamer seeks an epic win. And these actually words are from what I've taken of what I call the human OS, the human operating system. These are the things we seek. And all of the stories and case histories that I put together in No Straight Lines, whether it's actually at a citywide level, whether it's a car company, whether it's a crowdfunding company, they have all created and designed for transformation. And, you know, I spent a lot of time working with some companies where, in fact, actually, and as you can see, my interest is about innovation and doing it really well. But I can tell you, I had a lot of conversations with people where we would have 4-hour conversations about why we couldn't be doing something as opposed to how we could. Yeah, and that really frustrates me. And there's lots of things that are underpinning with that, which is people are fearful. They don't like change. Nobody likes change. But it's good to get comfortable in the uncomfortable zone and say, how can we create an epic win? How can we design for transformation? So the take-homes, I think, is our world is definitely super networked. It is participatory. We can customize it. It is multi-platform, and it is definitely data-driven. And my leaving thought is a bit like Nokia, disrupt yourself before somebody else comes and does it to you. Thank you very much.